Yeah, CIA was known as the OSS in the 30s. Balfour Declaration gave Rothschilds ownership over Israel. 100% correct. It's not an accident that in 48, Israel's created. At the same time that Operation Paperclip was going on in the U.S., as well as the Soviet Union and South America. Key people involved were Allen Dulles and John James McCloy, among many others. But Allen Dulles is responsible for getting almost 7,000 Yahtzees off, while John James McCloy, who was our Secretary of War, as well as High Commissioner for Germany, was the lawyer for the Yahtzee. And while we were turning away boats of Jewish refugees, they allowed 1,600 of these top scientists. Now, they have us fooled into thinking these are rocket scientists. They're not. Or 100 were. Werner von Braun and his crew went to NASA. Allen Dulles was the longest reigning CIA director in history. So while 100 of these Yahtzee scientists went to NASA, that left 1,500. And with those people, they started the CIA. They put them in 80 of the 300 colleges in the United States. These were not janitors. They were heads of departments. They also went to DARPA, the defense of the Pentagon, Big Pharma, and through the CIA were allowed to run massive mind control programs on the American citizens. We're talking about MK Ultra. We're talking about MK Naomi, Operation Midnight Climax, where they were quite literally building hospitals in order to carry out experiments on humans. I think we're all familiar with Tuskegee, but especially important, the Stanford prison experiment, where they built out a prison in the basement of Stanford College. They had 30 volunteers, and the volunteers that became the prisoners in the experiment were kidnapped and brought there against their will. And when I say colleges, what I mean is very top echelon Ivy League schools like Harvard, Yale, Princeton, UCLA, NYU, and many others. At the same time, that is when we reorganized our military division, and when the War College and colleges like Rodham, I don't know if you guys have ever seen the movie Clockwork Orange, but the heinous experiments that they did on humans with no oversight and unlimited budget were acts of war against the American people. In Operation Midnight Climax, they were running brothels where they outfitted entire apartment buildings with 2A mirrors and would lure unsuspecting citizens off the street as well as high-level government officials, drug them, and sometimes just release them back onto the street. In the paperwork for Midnight Climax, it shows that the police were in on it, that they had notified the police that maybe people would be walking around high on LSD because they were drugging them and then just releasing them back into the street. 1947 is when there was a global takeover by the Yahtzee, aided by companies like 3M, IBM, Ford, Coca-Cola, Johnson & Johnson, Merck. It's not an accident these Yahtzees were specializing in chemical warfare, that I.G. Farben, who was the chemical engineer for these chemicals that they were using at Auschwitz, turned into Bayer. These Zionists like Henry Kissinger and Albert Einstein, shockingly, are the reason for all of these wars and rumors of wars. They have underhandedly been funding both sides of wars, including militias as well as government militaries, just like we placed the Shah of Iran. Even though there were embargoes on Iraq and Iran in the 90s during the conflict, we were selling arms to both and quite literally instigating wars between them. Kennedy tried to tell us in his 1961 speech to the press, where he says we are opposed worldwide by a monolithic, ruthless conspiracy. These are the bad guys.